Hello and welcome to Watchdog Wargaming. Tonight I shall be reviewing the Bolt Action 28mm World War II miniatures for the Chindits, as in the Chindits section. Before I go on to that, bit more information about the Chindits. The Chindits, known officially as the Long Range Penetration Groups, were specially operations units of the British and Indian armies, which saw in action in 1943-1944 during the Burma campaign of World War II. They were commanded by the British Army Brigadier Orde Charles Wingate, who formed the Chindits for raiding operations against the Imperial Japanese Army, especially for long-range penetration, attacking Japanese troops, their facilities, lines of communication, deep behind Japanese lines. Their operations featured prolonged marches through extremely difficult terrain, undertaken by underfed troops, often weakened by diseases such as malaria and dysentery. As the book says, controversy persists over the extremely high casualty rate and the debatable military value of the achievement of the Chindits. However, certainly from a morale point of view, both back around the world and in the UK, by the actions they took, it can be debated that they actually did very, very well. But what I'll do is go on to the open the box in a minute, and we'll have a look at the actual castings. The uniforms themselves are very similar to what they were. The battle dress uniforms, what they were wearing, in northwest Europe and everywhere else, was very similar, and it was made from a material called Artex, which was allowed it to breathe and dry out quite quickly. But as you can imagine, certainly in the jungles, it was quite damp all the time. A lot of their uniforms were fell apart, weren't particularly hard wearing. It's actually a JG battle dress, so that stands for Jungle Green Battle Dress. We'll have a look at the figures. You'll see in a minute that they were wearing this Jungle Green Battle Dress. Some of them will be wearing the slouch hats that you probably normally see with the Aussies as well, and that was the preferred sort of headdress. Boots. They wore the traditional ammo boots. However, later on they did go on to sort of like rubberized jungle boots, but the jungle boots actually retained the water because they hot. They had a hollow center, and there was lots of issues with trench foot and trench rot. So not only that, so you had the malaria and everything else. So it's certainly one of those theaters that not only was the enemy, so you were fighting, but the actual the jungle itself. Well, enough me waffling on. So let's get into the actual opening of the actual box set. Let me just remove that. Models for Heroes. Brilliant. So here we have. Bought this yesterday from Warlord Games. Went to their open day, and hopefully I'll do a video on that at some time regarding the actual open day and one or two things that I saw that's in their things to come box cabinet. So let me see if I can get into this before I get the plastic off. So here we are, is their the typical box set they arrive in. So Bolt Action, Chindit Section, 10 metal 28mm World War II miniatures, suitable for mid to late period. On the back, the artwork as well, and little blurb on here. I'll just get the light out of the way. So Great Britain's armies suffered cruelly at the hands of the ferocious Japanese assaults in 1941-1942. Leading some to think of the simple Japanese soldier as an invincible foe in the steaming jungles of the Far East. Brigadier Orde Wingate thought otherwise, organising the penetration columns of British, Indian and Burmese troops to plunge unsupported behind the Japanese lines and raise havoc on the road, rail and supply trains. Also Gurkhas, if I remember rightly as well. Oh, yeah. He chose regular soldiers, the King's Liverpool Rifles and Gurkhas, for instance, and trained them for astonishingly arduous marches and vicious battles with the ruthless enemy. The raided Japanese, where they would least expected, carrying out all they needed on the backs of their trusty mules, and receiving essential supplies by airdrops where possible. Troops of the Indian Army were made up for the Chindits, nicknamed after the mythical Burmese temple beast, and also the Chindwine River, which they crossed a few times. Suffered terribly, but unquestionably helped raise army and civilian morale at the time when the forces of Japan seemed unstoppable. So the actual box set itself, it says, contains 10 10-man section, NCO armed with a rifle, 2-man Bren gun, LMG team, and 7 riflemen. So on the artwork here, yep, like I says, they're all wearing their jungle greens. They've got the 38 pattern webbing. And the rifles would be the SMLEs, the short magazine Lee Enfield, .303, possibly some M1 carbines, and possibly the later jungle carbine. But probably at this stage, probably will still be using the SMLEs, armed with either kukris or the large machetes as well, and not forgetting the LMG, the Bren gun. So let's have a look. Let's have a look inside. So ditch the box. The normals of plastic bases, put those to one side. Ditch the cardboard as well. Make sure I recycle it later on. Oh, so. Let's have a look at the figures in a second. Right, okay. Right, I found another use for these as well. So if you're doing your vehicles and you want to look like it's got battle damage, put a bit of silver on that or everything. Make sure it's you've dabbed it as much as you can off, and then lightly put it on your vehicles where you get wear and tear on turrets and plates that would come off. And yeah, that is perfect. So don't throw these away in the bin. These are perfect for other uses for when you come painting vehicles. Oh, Alice, thank you for Alice. I actually I went into the room where they were all packing these yesterday at the Warlord Games open day. So it was nice to actually meet some of the people who are actually on these people named on these. Right, so let's have a look. Also, as well, I did actually meet all the chappies that did all the casting, which was interesting to do. I must say that they were very passionate about what they do, and it was a case of went into it in great detail, and I was amazed so how long some of these people have actually been making figures for. So they're certainly professionals in their own fields. Okay, so let's have a look at these. Right, this is probably the leader chappie, so let's see if I can get it a bit more focused for you. So yeah, so this is Chindit. This is the NCO. It looks like he's got an M1 carbine with the American .30 small rounds. Could be so 38 pattern webbing, but you could actually it may be the actual 44 pattern webbing, which coming out later on. 44 pattern webbing actually was also used in Korea and Malaya as well. So it was. So this chap's got a bit of a beard. He's got his jungle greens on. His 38. I would say that's probably 44 pattern webbing. He's got a Japanese samurai sword there, probably as a souvenir, but also probably use it as well. Nice crisp casting and plenty of detail. Let's just put him to one side. Let's have a look at this chappie. So, yep, so this chappie's wearing a slouch hat. He's actually got it turned up on one side. So it wasn't just the Aussies that actually wore them. They were very, very popular with the Chindits, and actually a lot of the forces that actually fought in Burma and the jungles. So yeah, he's armed with a kukri. He's got his rucksack on, extra water bottles, and he's got his SMLE long bayonet. Yeah, again, it's armed with a beard. Who's this chappie? Right, okay, beard. Looks like he's got a little bit of bandage around his head. He's got kukri. He's got a small pack on this time. This looks like it's 38 pattern webbing. Um, bayonet, yeah, SMLE, and he looks like he's got a bandage around his head. What's this chappie? Okay, so this chappie's reloading his 10 round SMLE using his 5-round clips. Even though this by this stage is the SMLE, so a pre-World War I weapon, is actually still in use. It was very, very good. Yeah, so this is definitely 44 pattern webbing. So he's got his extra poncho underneath, his monsoon poncho, cookery, reloading it. Brilliant. So a little bit of flash on these, but we'll take these off. One thing about the chappies did say, not I do it, but not everybody does, which was quite interesting. It was actually metal miniatures. What they said was just to make sure that you wash them or clean them with an old toothbrush. And he actually said your best thing is actually toothpaste to actually take off. There's a film that's over the top of it, and that actually came from people who cast them. So one of their top tips. Yep. So looks like he's got a poncho or his monsoon cape over the back of his webbing. Cookery, 38 pattern webbing, SMLE, and a slouch hat. Nice. Oh, okay. Right, this one, he's let's get this bit of flash off. So he looks like he's chucking his Mills bomb. He's got his SMLE. A little bit of damage there to the SMLE. So probably I'll sort that out. That's fine. So he's got his. It looks like a large pack. He's got his 44 large pack and then with a small pack on top of it. Okay, interesting combination. His long bayonet for his SMLE and his cookery. And it's got his slouch hat fully down on that side. Okay, my favourite. So you've got the Bren gun here. Now let's get rid of that little. So Bren gun here. So chap armed with Bren gun, 30 round magazine. But they also they took a couple of rounds out, so they didn't want to put a bit of a strain on the spring. What else has he got on here? So he's got his machete. He's got the machete is large pack or 44 pack, and then his bedding roll or his monsoon cape. Probably a map case there, or that could be the medical water bottle was just a little bit larger, and it had a sort of like a metal cap on it as well. So I don't know if that's what that's meant to be, but it's certainly a larger pouch. And then what we go on to another rifleman. Again, SMLE, webbing. Yeah, these ones are going to do a little bit. Going to need a bit of a clean up, so I put my file to it and take off all the spare bit of flash. But other than that, yeah, these are nice figures. I do like them, and they do represent the actual sort of soldiers that fought in the jungles. Now, one of the uses I'm going to be using these for is, as you all know, I'm doing Korea at the moment, so I'm going to actually use these for potentially my Commonwealth Aussies for Korea, because the uniforms are very, very similar to what they had in Korea, and they still use the SMLEs in Korea as well. In fact, this is actually the number 2 for the Bren gunner. As you can see, he's actually got the spare barrels and the spare parts bag on there as well. So he would have carried the extra ammunition. In fact, if you look on the figures, he's got here at the top is the extra magazines that the strap went around the back of the neck. So not only did you carry in a normal 38 pattern webbing, you actually had extra mags that was slung around your neck. So he's the number 2 on the Bren gun. well, seeing as most of the majority of the firepower came from the Bren gun, it was actually essential that everybody in that section carried extra magazines. So if they were lucky enough, they had not only did they have the Mills grenades, but possibly a 2-inch mortar bomb or two and extra magazines for the Bren gun. So it's yeah, okay. And then the final chappie, he's actually got his bayonet fitted, and he looks like he's in a charging pose. Water bottle, 38 pattern webbing, and there's a small pack there as well. In fact, he actually looks like he's got two water bottles, and let's have a look. So yeah, that's not. I don't think that's it. Yeah, there's a cookery there as well. So okay, so there we are. That's the Boltaction Chindit section. As I said, it's you could also use these possibly for malaria as well. So also what I'm reading up on at the moment is the Britain's involvement in Vietnam. So as you may or may not be aware, it was the Japanese surrendered, who they had occupied Vietnam, and basically the British troops were the nearest forces, and they handed over to them. And unfortunately, there was a bit of bother with what turned out to be the Viet Minh, and the British technically rearmed the Japanese soldiers and used them to sort out the issues with the Viet Minh, or the start of Viet Minh. And unfortunately, they then handed all over to the French, who turned it into a bit of a mess. And then so you had the as we all know later on, you had Vin Dinh Phu with the French that eventually got kicked out of Vietnam, and then that later on went on to sort of America's involvement in Vietnam. So if you look at it, if the British and the Japanese had sorted out the Viet Minh right from when they, so 1945, when they had a chance to, would have communism flourished in Vietnam, and would the Americans' involvement have actually gone ahead? One of those what if questions. But I go off on one again. But there we are. So great figures. 10 metal, 28 millimeter World War II miniatures. They'll be great ones once I've painted them up in the jungle green. And yeah, so thanks for your time. Much appreciated. I will be doing a couple of another video shortly on the Warlord Games open day. So that was a bit of a treat to myself. Went up there with my son, and we had a look around their manufacturing process, their store area. Met the CEO. John Starnard, met Paul Sawyer, and I must admit their staff are very passionate about what they actually do, and it shows in they take great pride in their products, whether it's packing, making it, or anything. So it's a well worth a company that I support. I'm not sponsored by them, but it's a case of I like their hobby, Boltaction. It's one of my go-tos, and I like their figures. Put this back out there as well. So I'm actually one of the local helpers with Models for Heroes in sort of North Wiltshire area. If anybody's interested in Models for Heroes, and so the details are actually on there. Like I said, providing meaningful and mindful activity for the UK's armed forces and emergency services personnel. So through model making, as you know, making models and painting models takes your mind off just on what you're painting, and everything else is secondary. Myself, it's been there, done it, got the t-shirt for having the black dog, and I find that model making and painting is my go-to. But well, thank you for your time. Hopefully it's perked your interest in looking at Burma or further afield, and I hope to catch you again. So take care, all the best, goodbye now.